Hey friends, I hope you're having a great one today. I hope you and yours are safe and sound, and I thank you for spending time with me today. It's an honor to spend this time with you, and today I want to spend some time in Luke chapter 10. It's one of Jesus's most familiar, popular, famous parables that he told, and sometimes the familiar we gloss over. We become so familiar with the story that we gloss over the big meaning, and I just pray that something fresh comes upon us in the telling and reading of this story today. It's Jesus confronting a teacher of the law, and the lawyer is looking to test Jesus. And he says, in chapter 10, verse 25 of Luke, it says, "And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, 'Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?' And he said to him, 'What is written in the law? How do you read it? You're a lawyer. How do you see it? What does it say?' And he answered, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.' And Jesus said, bingo, that's it. You have answered correctly. Go do this and you will live." But then the lawyer, after patting himself on the back for his correct answer, decided, I just need a little more information. I got to hone on this. He says, one more thing, Jesus, before you go. Who is my neighbor? He was looking for a definition. Like, what is the definition of neighbor? Is it the person 3 houses up, 2 houses? How far does this extend? Is it 25 feet this way? Does it count the neighbor behind me? Does it the one up on the hill? Like, what is the range of that? What does my neighbor look like? Who is my neighbor? In other words, the teacher of the law is saying, tell me which people I need to love, and then I can just forget about everybody else. I'll go do the checklist. I'll check off the people I need to, and then I can push the others aside. Well, Jesus doesn't give him an answer. He gives him a story. And it's a story of a man who's going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, which is a real dangerous passage. And he falls among robbers. And they not only rob him, they leave him for dead in the ditch. He's on his last breath. And here comes a priest down the street. And Jesus says the priest comes by and he walks on the other side of the street, not offering any aid. And at this point, the disciples and the others say, yeah, you give it to the religious right. That's right, you give it to him, you give it to him. And then a Levite comes, and one of the upright, one of the religious right as well. And he passes by on the other side of the street. And the crowd's going, yeah, Jesus, they're putting all these heavy burdens on us. That's right, you give it to them. But then Jesus says, then a Samaritan comes along. And then it's like, whoa, what? Samaritan? Did he just say Samaritan? And a Samaritan comes along. They're like, we got to understand the context here. Jews and Samaritans did not get along. The Jews couldn't stand the Samaritans. They thought the only good Samaritan was a dead Samaritan. And here Jesus says, and a Samaritan came along. And the Samaritan stopped and moved to the man in the ditch's need. Now understand, this is a Jewish man in the ditch, and the Samaritan's moving to meet his needs. He knows that this man can't stand him, and that he'd sooner die than have this man help him, but he didn't have a choice. He's on his last breath, and this Samaritan comes along and helps him. He binds up his wounds, puts him on his animal, and takes him to the inn in town, and gives him some money and says, here, you take care of him and make sure he gets everything he needs. The Samaritan. Well, the story continues, and Jesus says, after telling the story, he asks the teacher of the law, which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? Which of these men proved to be a neighbor to this man in the ditch? And the lawyer can't even bring himself to say the Samaritan. He says, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. You see, it's not about defining who our neighbor is. Our neighbor is the next person who crosses our path, whoever that may be. We're to be neighbors to all. We're to treat everyone as our neighbor. If they come across our path, that's our neighbor. Who's your neighbor? The next person who crosses your path. The next person you encounter. It's not about a definition. It's about proximity. If there's someone in need, that's your neighbor. Whoever's right in front of you, that's your neighbor. It's not about a definition. It's about a person. And it's the person that's right in front of us. How are we doing on that? Are we treating the next person we see as our neighbor? Are we loving the next person who crosses our path the way Jesus loved us? And the fact that Jesus used the Samaritan, he's saying, even your enemies, even those who despise you, guess what? That's your neighbor. And And look, they despised Jesus. Right before he tells this parable, a Samaritan village had rejected him. They told him he couldn't even stay in their town. Jesus was passing through in chapter 9. And then here in chapter 10, he tells the story. And it's the Samaritan that is the neighbor, the one who moves to the need of the man in the ditch. I hope we can take a lesson from this. We all can. That we're to treat everybody like our neighbor. Treat everybody. Treat the next person who crosses your path the way Jesus treated you. The way he loved us, the way he went to the cross for us. He died for us. Despite our fallings, our failings, and our flaws. Who's my neighbor? The next person who crosses my path. Who's your neighbor? The next person who crosses your path. Let's love on them the way we've been loved by Jesus. Have a great day. God bless.